settled down to watch this with a nice cuppa, then you're going to be particularly interested in one of the stories we're investigating today.
You will, because we're going to get to the bottom of some overboiled and in some cases rather frightening stories that the papers just love to repeat, even though not all of them are true. Every day we're bombarded with conflicting information about our favourite foods.
1 minute we're told something's good for us, the next it's not, and we're left feeling guilty about what we're eating.
Well, we've been wading through the confusion to separate the scare stories from the truth, so you can choose your food with confidence. Hello, we're very glad you've been able to join us for Food, Truth or Scare. Now, this is a programme that scrutinises some of the more terrifying headlines that might just prompt you into giving up things that you love to eat. All too often, you know, they don't give you the full story, but we're here to set the record straight.
And just as well, because if you believed all the headlines we'll be looking at today, you could be making big changes to your diet for all the wrong reasons. Because while we do still tend to be influenced by what we read in the papers, some reports do get the latest research a bit muddled and end up giving us the totally wrong message.
Which is not good. So, as we unpick all of that, you might welcome the news to come out of today's programme, and in one case, it's no exaggeration to say it could save lives. Coming up, we drink millions of cups of tea and coffee every single day, but which of the two is better for us? And for those who just can't get enough, could it be doing more harm than good?
It's a pick-me-up. It keeps me going through the day, and especially winter, you can't do without tea.
Right, Gloria, I'm going to interrupt your cup of tea with a quick question for you. How much tea and coffee do you drink?
Now, you're sitting there asking an Irish woman how many cups of tea that she drinks every day. You have watched me drinking tea right throughout this programme. I never drink coffee.
Okay.
Don't like it. It gives me a headache. So I only drink tea and lots of it.
Right, OK, well, I must admit, I do rely on caffeine to get me through those early mornings and long days. And while I don't think I could live without my cup of coffee, I have felt a bit worried after seeing those headlines that say caffeine is addictive, or even that too much of it can lead to cancer. So I wanted to find out if I really need to be concerned, and if I do, whether I'd be better off switching to a different brew.
We've long been considered a nation of tea drinkers, and whether we go for Earl Grey or Builders, we're each said to get through hundreds of mugs of it every year. But these days, it's actually coffee we drink the most, and that's usually the only brew you'll find in my mug.
This is the first of about 5 or 6 cups of coffee I'll drink most days. But you don't have to look too far to find some headlines telling us that caffeine is bad for us, or worse still, even addictive. And it's not just coffee, tea's in the frame too.
The headlines are pretty confusing. Some say our daily drinking habit could be really bad for us and even cause cancer. But the same papers also report the exact opposite, that tea and coffee can actually fight cancer, as well as slash the risk of heart disease and protect your liver. So after reading those headlines, I now have no idea if I drink too much coffee or even if I should be drinking more. And the shoppers I spoke to couldn't help me make up my mind.
So I see you've both got a cup of tea.
It's caffeine-free.
Is that what made you choose that?
I tend to be caffeine-free. It gives me sort of the jitters, even the small amount in tea.
Do you drink much tea and coffee?
I tend to have between 15 and 20 cups a day.
15 to 20 cups a day. Do you think that level of tea drinking's safe or healthy or unhealthy?
I haven't had a day off in 20 plus years, so that must say something.
Do you drink much tea?
Yeah, I've got into fruit teas a lot recently because I've given up caffeine.
Oh, you've given up caffeine?
Yeah, I
Why?
haven't been drinking because I found it was giving me quite bad heart palpitations.
What is too much tea and coffee? Or is there such a thing?
Coffee, I don't know, 2 a day, 2 caffeinated coffees, like, you know, because it's stronger. Tea's not as caffeinated, right? Or I assume it's not.
Well, I don't know.
No?
I feel like it's not.
You can have a tea before bed and you'd still be able to sleep, whereas I think if I had a coffee before bed, I'd be like, yeah.
Our tea drinkers are right. A mug of ordinary tea has about 3/4 of the caffeine that's in the same sized mug of instant coffee. I drink about 5 cups of coffee a day, but I worry that might be too much. I've arranged to meet GP Dr. Aisha Sharif.
How are you?
Very well, thank
who's quick to tell me there's no need to be quite so cautious about caffeine.
For most normal, healthy adults, we don't specify a limit to the caffeine. Obviously, for pregnant ladies, there is some guidance, and we say 200 milligrams is safe.
With too much caffeine linked to low birth weight and an increased risk of miscarriage, pregnant women are advised to drink no more than a couple of cups of instant coffee or just under 3 cups of tea a day. For the rest of us, though, there's no official limit, and because our bodies all react differently to caffeine, there's no hard and fast rule for how much it will take for any side effects to kick in.
You may be having a bit too much stimulation, so you may be finding that your heart races. And a huge problem for me as a GP is insomnia.
So lack of sleep, what does that do to people?
Well, I think it starts to, if you have got some anxiety problems, it can heighten your anxiety. If you are susceptible to having certain heart conditions, for example, we have quite a rare condition called SVT, which is where the heart starts to race faster than it should, which can be potentially dangerous for certain people.
Experts say our bodies and brains naturally regulate the amount of caffeine we drink, and we're actually very good at stopping when we've had enough. And while some people say that caffeine gives them the shakes, Aisha says that that's just a short-term effect and there's no long-term harm. So she finds all those scaremongering headlines laughable.
Are you addicted to coffee? Doctors are now treating caffeine use disorders with therapy.
I've yet to meet a doctor who's actually doing that. I don't find that that's a huge problem, certainly where I work.
Are you a secret caffeine addict? The health dangers of drinking too much tea
I think
and
that's
coffee.
overplaying a very safe drink.
Is it addictive though? Is caffeine an addictive substance?
Most common sense feeling on that is yes, you do desire a cup when you've been used to drinking a cup in the morning, and people do notice they get headaches and feel sluggish when they stop drinking coffee.
But that's a reasonably short term.
Exactly, 1 or 2 days and it's out of your system.
So my 5 or 6 cups, you're telling me that that's perfectly safe and I'm absolutely fine to continue with it?
Absolutely safe, yeah.
So, if we're safe to ignore those terrifying headlines, what about the ones that tell us that tea and coffee can do us all manner of good? I want to find out if there's any truth to those too. So I'm going to stage my very own battle of the brews. I'll fight the corner for coffee, but I need someone to head up Team Tea.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm not here for a haircut though.
Okay.
But I do hear you make a mean cup of tea.
I'm going to make you one then, and you can tell me if that is true.
Yes, please, yeah, just like me, nice and strong. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Lady Job runs this hair salon in South London, and like many of us, she can't get through a working day without a few brews.
What's the secret to a good cup of tea?
The secret to a good cup of tea, to be honest with you, brew very well, not too strong though, and a bit of biscuit.
So, how many cups of tea would you say you drink every day?
Do I need to tell you that? I think maybe something like a minimum of 5, it might be more.
More than 5.
5
How
a day.
many more than 5?
Confession, maybe around 7.
Clearly, tea is an essential part of Lady's day. In fact, she reckons she couldn't live without it.
So, what do you think tea's good for?
It's a pick-me-up. It keeps me going through the day, and especially winter, you can't do without tea. I actually read somewhere that caffeine is good for the hair.
Hair?
Yes.
Well, you're drinking lots of tea and you've got fantastic hair. So I think there might be something in that.
Oh, well, what can I say?
So, with Lady drinking even more tea than I do coffee, which of us is making the better choice? I've arranged for the pair of us to meet Professor Gary Williamson. He's an expert in how our bodies are affected by the food we eat, and he's been studying tea, coffee and caffeine for years.
So, Gary, the lovely lady here is a huge tea fan. I'm a big coffee fan. We both drink enough of it to sink a battleship. Whose drink is healthiest?
Well, it's not really as simple as which one is the most healthy, because it really depends on what health parameter, what health impact you're going for. Tea and coffee, they're both quite healthy.
So let's see how many of those headlines about health benefits are true, starting with one saying tea can help if you've got high cholesterol.
And it's true. If you have lots of tea, there's been plenty of studies to show that you can reduce some cholesterol. It's not going to be as much as taking drugs. It's not going to rescue you if you've got high cholesterol, but it's a subtle effect, like most things in nutrition.
Are you happy to hear that?
Very happy to hear that.
But coffee's got some pretty impressive benefits too.
If you look at something like type 2 diabetes, actually coffee is really well protective against developing type 2 diabetes. But tea is also good, but it's not quite as good as coffee for diabetes.
Okay.
If you look at heart disease, then probably tea is a little bit better, and especially green tea is particularly good for protecting against heart disease.
And while your cuppa isn't going to instantly cure anything, it doesn't take much to get that extra bit of protection.
Once you have about 3 or 4 cups, drinking more than that is probably not going to make too much difference.
Okay.
But it's really down to your individual preference for caffeine. And you know, some people can tolerate it better, some people can tolerate it less well.
Tea and coffee can be good for us because they both contain something called polyphenols, naturally occurring chemicals known to have huge health benefits. But how many of those all-important polyphenols we get from a cuppa depends on the type of brew we choose and how we make it. Whether it's decaf, filter, tea bags or instant, Gary says they can all be good for us, but some are even better than others. So I've asked him to help us rank the best of the best and put some of our most popular hot drinks in the order he thinks is healthiest. First up, a herbal favourite. It's believed to help us get a better night's sleep, so is chamomile tea actually good for us?
Right, I would say that's up there with one of the best.
That's a good one. It's got lots of polyphenols in chamomile. It's got no caffeine. And it's got no calories.
No calories, no
caffeine, and lots of polyphenol.
As Aisha told me earlier, there's no problem with having caffeine, but because it's a stimulant and some people are more sensitive to it, it's the drinks with less caffeine that Gary ranks highest, which has a surprising impact on how he rates the coffees.
I'll put espresso probably somewhere in the middle.
Right, okay.
Filter coffee, which has less caffeine than an espresso, is a little higher.
So now we've got instant coffee.
I would have that reasonably high. Not too much caffeine, plenty of polyphenols, relatively easy to drink and prepare.
Yeah.
So I think we'd probably put that fairly high.
So if we put that up there,
Yeah.
and now we've got an instant decaf, no caffeine,
No caffeine,
polyphenols still,
polyphenols, and no calories.
and no calories. So I would put that
I
quite
pretty much have that top.
top
I'll pretty much have that top.
because there could be no negatives.
Because there's no negatives.
Coffee connoisseurs might say there are tastier cups, but with plenty of polyphenols, no calories and no caffeine, your mug of black decaf instant coffee would top Gary's list. Some other coffees go much further down. If they haven't been through a filter, they'll contain more of the compounds that have been shown to increase the risk of cardiovascular disease. So that breakfast table favourite, the cafetiere, is the lowest scorer so far. So does all that mean ladies' favourite tea, English breakfast, is destined for the top of the table?
One of the problems with the breakfast tea is that the polyphenols are not so easily absorbed by the body.
It's all in there. It's
all
just
in there,
about
it's
how
just-
our body absorbs
Exactly.
it. Right, OK, so we're going to put this one, unfortunately, probably what's drank most in the country.
It's not so high.
Ah, that's a shame, isn't it? That is a shame.
It's very annoying because I love tea.
I'm sorry, lady.
So we keep it here.
But the nation's favourite tea isn't lowest on the table. It's just about level pegging with a relatively obscure one called Rooibos, or Red Bush, which, like English breakfast tea, doesn't release its polyphenols quite as easily as coffee. If our table was bigger, green tea and some herbal teas would be right up there with chamomile as being super healthy. But according to Gary, they're all trumped by that instant decaf coffee. It's at the top of the table because it's got no caffeine, no calories, and plenty of easily absorbed polyphenols. It might have come out top here, but Gary says there are no losers on this table.
I think we've done quite well in ordering them, but just remember that all of them really are quite good.
So, yes, we haven't gone from good to bad. We've gone from
good,
very good to still
pretty
good.
good.
But I'm still a competitive chap, so I've got to say that I'm delighted to see coffee coming out ahead of ladies' favourite, tea. Of course, whichever is your preference, adding milk and sugar like Lady does will mean there's more calories in your cup. And while I can't convince her to switch to coffee, she is prepared to make some sacrifices that can only make her drink healthier.
Now, I think what I have to do is to cut down on the milk, maybe reduce the amount of sugar if that adds a calorie to it.
And the biscuits with it.
You have to have biscuit.
Who's drinking all of this?
Not
Or
me.
who's paying for it, more to the point? Taxi?
Now, we all know what to do if we get stung by a jellyfish, but how do you avoid them? Rip Off Britain investigates holidays next. And Pigs for Prizes tonight here on BBC One as we don on our wellies and head to the Farmers' Country Showdown.